Hello, my name is Lin Zhang, and today I'm interviewing Laura Faria Tancinco. Laura, thank you for being here with me. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me to this interview.
Laura is a coordinator of Project Excel at our Rhode Island College. Laura, would you telling us what inspired you to become a bilingual teacher, and how does your own language fluency contribute to your teaching?
Great. So I was inspired to become a bilingual teacher after I graduated college. I went to Syracuse University and I graduated with a degree in graphic design from the School of Art. And I love art and I love graphic design. But when I started working in the corporate world, and it just really wasn't my ideal environment. I couldn't see myself working in an office forever. So I was kind of at a crossroads, at a decision-making point. I was still young. I had no partner, no kids, and pretty free to do whatever interested me. So my best friend and I, we spun the globe and we put our fingers and we pointed to Ecuador. We found Ecuador in South America. So we said, okay, we'll go for 6 months and see how we like it. And we ended up staying for 3 years. And it was an amazing experience. That's where I was introduced to teaching English. And while I was in Ecuador, I taught primarily Ecuadorians. And I always thought, oh, when I go back to the United States, I'm going to continue teaching English, and I'm really excited to see who arrives in my classroom, what parts of the globe will appear in my classroom. And it got me really excited. So 3 years later, when I returned from Ecuador, I started teaching English to speakers of other languages in adult education. So you asked, how does my own language fluency contribute to my teaching? And my teaching philosophy has changed over the years. At first, in general, it was a really English focused. English, 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 English only, really pushing for English. But over the years, I myself and the profession, we've really evolved, really thinking about welcoming other languages in addition to English. So instead of pushing English on our students, we really want to think that the language is the person and it's a person's identity. So instead of replacing a language, really having English work together with the language or languages that students already speak. It is indeed their culture, their identity, and their whole person. I can't imagine someone telling me, I learned Spanish. I can't imagine someone telling me, oh, Spanish only. You can't use English anymore. I don't want to hear English at all. Only Spanish in every minute of your life. It would be like the majority of me as a person disappearing or not existing. So learning Spanish in Ecuador influenced my teaching philosophy.
All right. Thank you for sharing your valuable experience with me. So one more question before running to our commercial break. So Laura, how do you support bilingual students who may also have a learning or developmental disability?
A great question. So it's important to ask that question. A lot of times people who are learning English, learning a new language is so hard. It's hard, it's slow, and there's no shortcuts. So sometimes students are misdiagnosed, or people are misdiagnosed as having a learning disability or developmental disability because many monolingual people don't realize how hard it is to learn a second language. So I guess there's kind of two parts to this. One is that the language learner may have a learning disability, and we want to identify that, absolutely. But we also don't want, to the other side, assume that the learner definitely has a learning disability when it may be actually part of the language learning process. So we really have to be careful with this type of a situation. We have to think, let's find out more about what the student knows in their home language, which is easier for some languages, Spanish speakers, Portuguese speakers, but it's harder for other languages that may be from more remote or smaller populations. How do we, learn about that student's language knowledge in their home language in a meaningful way to find out, is this language learning process, or is it indeed a language or a developmental disability or a learning disability? Because we don't want to misdiagnose people, right? We want to give learners the supports and the services that they need. So we want to ask the question, but we want to be sure we don't assume because of the language learning process. So if a student does indeed have a learning disability, I think, or to find out, to try to discover if they do, I think it's best to slow down and ask some, what I always say, like curious questions. Questions to get to know the person, their journey, their experience, and their level of education and talents in their first language. Because if a person has indeed a learning disability, they're not only going to have that learning disability in English, they're also going to have that learning disability in their first language. So it isn't, if it only appears in English, well, it's not a learning disability. It's actually something that we can work on for them to be more successful in English.
All right. Thank you for your input, Laura. A commercial break. Stay tuned.
Is this you? Do you suck at pool? Miscue, on cue? Let's fix that. With Silver Cup Billiard Chalk, you can make contact like a pro. So what are you waiting for? Chalk up.
Are you failing at adulting? Tired of being single and having no social life?
Waste your money away by starting a Sunny Angel collection today.
Unwrap a box and get a prize. There might even be something special inside. An adorable toy for adults that can't handle being an adult. With 8 series to choose from and over 500 naked babies to collect. Put them on display, carry a buddy on the go, or talk to them when you're lonely. Sunny Angels, to distract yourself from all of your adult problems.
And we are back with Laura, the coordinator of Project Excel. Before the break, Laura is telling us about how she gets started with bilingual education. So Laura, during this year's working with second language students, do you ever meet a special student or event that you never forget?
Wow, this is a really hard question. There are so many students that I will never forget. Working with bilingual college students like yourself, it's really special to meet students and learn more about them. I consider it an honor. It's an honor and it's very humbling. So I can like picture a person's face for like so many situations. So I guess I don't have just one, but a few. So I have so many talented bilingual students. I can picture them graduating from Rhode Island high schools. We have bilingual nursing majors who are graduating from RIC at the top of their class. That's very memorable to me. Language learners who were extreme athletes in their home country, like some of them tell me they've climbed Mount Everest. Like, that's amazing, right? And then they're taking classes here with us at Rhode Island College. I have faces for bilingual refugees who spent many of their childhood years in refugee camps before being allowed to immigrate to the United States, and then enroll in college. That's humbling to hear students from that experience as well. And bilingual college students who they wrote about their escape from terrorists in their home country, in their writing papers, and they shared it with me. So it's a important lesson in, listening and thinking outside of my own selfishness and my own self. There are so many paths in this world that people take to arrive to these classrooms that we can't assume that any path has been easy for someone. And more importantly,